Welcome back to Chat Like a Native.
Hello again.
So have you ever felt like, you know a lot of English, but maybe those little sounds and they kind of creep in.
Oh, absolutely. Happens to everyone.
Yeah, maybe they make you sound a little less polished than you actually feel inside.
Right.
So today, we're really going to dive into these little verbal habits.
Mm-hmm. The fillers.
Yeah, the fillers. We'll look at why we use them, what kind of impact they have.
And crucially, some practical step-by-step ways to get a handle on them.
Exactly, to become more aware and, hopefully speak more fluently, more confidently.
And trust us, making these small adjustments, it can genuinely have a surprisingly big impact on how native speakers perceive your English.
That's the goal, right?
Yeah.
Clearer communication.
Absolutely. It's not about, erasing every single pause or sound that would be unnatural.
Right.
It's more about being in control, understanding the mechanics, why these things happen.
Fine-tuning the skills you already have.
Precisely. Fine-tuning your already impressive English.
Okay, so let's get specific then. We're talking about sounds like, but also things like, and,
Exactly. Those common ones that tend to pepper our speech.
and they just sort of happen almost automatically. What's going on in our brains?
Well, it's actually quite fascinating. These sounds often signal that our brain is still working,
Us.
processing.
Processing.
Yeah, imagine your brain juggling, finding the right word, building the sentence, planning what comes next, all at once.
Okay, yeah, that's a lot.
It is. So these fillers, they're like little flags saying, hang on, processing in progress. It's a very human thing, really.
Like our mouths are stalling for time while the brain catches up.
Kind of, yeah, a verbal placeholder.
But is there a downside? I mean, you hear native speakers use them too.
Oh, definitely. And occasional use is perfectly fine, even natural. It can make speech sound more relaxed.
Okay.
But overuse, that's where the problem lies. Too many can, unfortunately, become distracting for the person listening.
Right, they start noticing the ums instead of the message.
Exactly. Yeah. It can make it harder to follow your point. And sometimes, maybe unintentionally, it can signal less certainty, less confidence.
Even if you actually feel confident about what you're saying?
Precisely. Even if you know your stuff inside out.
Okay, so it's about clarity and making sure our message lands well. Where do these habits actually come from? Is it just learned behavior?
It's often a mix of things. A big factor is what psychologists call cognitive load.
Cognitive load.
Yeah, basically how hard your brain is working. When you're speaking, especially in a second language, you're managing grammar, vocab, sentence structure.
Right, all at once.
It's a lot. So when the load gets high, those fillers can slip in as your brain tries to keep the flow going while planning the next bit. Like a verbal buffer.
Ah, a buffer for our brain power. That makes a lot of sense.
And there's sometimes a social angle, too.
Social? How so?
Well, sometimes, maybe subconsciously, we might use fillers to soften what we're saying, sound less direct, maybe more polite or tentative.
Interesting. Like padding the message a bit? Sort of. Or, as we mentioned, it can sometimes just signal uncertainty, even if that's not the real feeling.
That's a really good point about the social side. Never quite thought of it that way. Okay, so we know what they are, why we use them, and maybe why we want to use them a bit less. Where do we start? What's the very first step?
The absolute crucial first step is awareness. You really need to understand how often you are actually using them.
Okay, awareness.
Because often our perception isn't quite reality. We might think, I don't say that much, but the data might surprise you.
So how do we get that data? Do we need someone following us around counting?
Haha, no, thankfully not.
Yeah.
A really effective way is just to record yourself.
Oh, okay. Record myself speaking.
Yeah, just for a short time, maybe 1 or 2 minutes. Just speak naturally, tell a story, explain something simple, maybe even just talk to yourself about your day.
Just natural conversation mode.
Exactly. The key is natural.
Okay, recording ourselves. I admit that sounds a little daunting. What do we do with the recording then? Well, you listen back, but listen specifically for those filler words. Tune your ear to catch every, whatever your common ones are.
Actively listen for them.
Yes. And then this is the really insightful part. Try to transcribe what you said, word for word.
Write it all down. Wow.
Yeah. Writing it down forces you to see it plainly. As you transcribe, just make a little tally mark every time you hear one of those filler words.
Okay, tallying up the ums and ahs, I imagine seeing that written out could be quite revealing.
It often is. Once you have that inventory, that list of marks, the next step is to get your baseline metric.
Baseline metric.
Yeah, just get up all those tally marks, then divide that total number by the number of minutes you recorded.
So if I recorded for 2 minutes and had 10 ums, that's 5 per minute.
Exactly. That gives you your fillers per minute rate. That's your starting point, your before picture.
Got it. So we have our number. Is there like a target number? What's considered good?
Well, good is relative, but generally, people often cited as fluent speakers tend to hover around, say, 3 to 5 filler words per minute.
Okay, 3 to 5.
So the goal isn't 0 that can sound robotic, actually.
Right, unnatural.
Yeah. The aim is just steady, gradual reduction from your starting point.
Okay, that feels achievable, a tangible goal. So, step 1, awareness and baseline. What's strategy number 2?
Strategy 2 is all about embracing the pause, the power of the pause.
Pausing instead of filling the silence.
Exactly. Many learners feel this pressure, this urge, to fill every tiny gap with a sound. But think about it. A brief, silent pause is usually much less distracting for your listener than an or an.
That's true. Silence isn't inherently bad.
Not at all. It gives both you and the listener a moment. Time to process what was just said. Time to anticipate what's next.
It gives our thoughts room to breathe, maybe. But silence can feel awkward or really long when you're the one speaking.
It can feel that way, yes.
Yeah.
Especially at first. That's why deliberate practice is key.
How do we practice pausing?
Try this. Take a short text, maybe a paragraph from a book or article. Read it aloud.
Okay.
But here's the exercise. Every single time you feel that urge to use a filler word, consciously replace it with a silent pause. Just about 1 second long.
1 second. So actively choose silence.
Yes. You can even silently count 1 in your head to get a feel for the duration. You might find it shorter than it feels.
Interesting. Okay, reading aloud, replacing fillers with a 1 second pause. Any other ways to practice this?
Yeah, another neat trick is using a metronome app on your phone.
A metronome, like for music.
Exactly. Set it to about 60 beats per minute. That's 1 beat per second. As you speak, maybe practice talking points. Try pausing for just 1 beat of that metronome whenever you'd normally use a filler.
So the metronome gives you a consistent length for the pause.
Precisely. It helps you develop a rhythm and just get comfortable with that brief silence. With practice, it starts to feel much more natural.
Okay, so awareness first, then mastering the pause. What's step 3?
Step 3 involves thinking about how you structure your speech. It's called chunking.
Chunking, like grouping things.
Exactly. Instead of focusing on each individual word as you speak, you aim to group words together into meaningful phrases or short clauses, little chunks of meaning.
Okay. How does that help with fillers?
Well, it helps your brain plan ahead more effectively. If you're planning a chunk of, say, 3 to 5 words at once, rather than word by word,
right,
you naturally reduce the need for those little hesitation markers between the individual words. Your brain has the next few words ready to go.
So instead of thinking, I want to go, I think I want to go as one unit.
Precisely that.
Yeah.
You're thinking and speaking in these slightly larger units, which lessens the cognitive load at the word level.
Less load means less need for those buffer sounds.
Exactly. It gives your brain breathing room to prepare the next chunk, leading to a smoother overall flow.
That sounds way more efficient. How do we actually practice doing that, speaking in chunks?
One good way is to prepare some talking points, maybe for a meeting or just a story you want to tell. Write them out.
Okay.
Then go through your notes and physically underline or bracket groups of, say, 3 to 5 words that form natural thought units.
Like little phrases.
Yeah. Then, when you practice speaking, try to deliver each underlined chunk almost like it's one long word, maybe on a single breath. Then take a tiny pause before the next chunk.
Okay, speak the chunk, pause, speak the next chunk. I can see how that would create natural rhythm.
Yeah.
Any other chunking exercises?
Another useful angle is to look at conjunctions. Words like and, but, so, because.
The connecting words.
Right. They often signal a natural boundary between ideas or chunks. So practice pausing very slightly after these words instead of maybe putting in before or after them.
So I went to the store, paused my cause, and then I came home. Instead, I went to the store and then I...
Exactly. Use those conjunctions as natural pausing points.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. So we're aware, we're pausing, we're chunking. What's next on the list?
Step 4 is about being strategic and patient. It's about setting up a gradual improvement plan.
Not trying to fix it all overnight.
Definitely not. Changing habits, especially speech habits, takes time. So the idea is to set realistic weekly goals for reducing your filler count.
Okay, like any skill development, what kind of reduction is realistic?
10%.
50%.
Aiming for maybe a 10 to 20% reduction per week
Uh-huh.
is often a good starting point. It's noticeable, but not overwhelming.
So back to my example, if I started at 5 fillers per minute.
Right. Maybe in week 1, you aim for 4.5 per minute, because shaving off a little bit. Then the next week, maybe aim for 4.0, and so on. Small, consistent steps build momentum.
That gradual slope feels much more manageable than a cliff. How do we track this? Make sure we're actually hitting those targets.
Keep recording yourself regularly, maybe once or twice a week, for the same length of time as your first recording.
Okay, more recording.
Yep. Then do the same process.
Yep.
Listen back, transcribe, or at least tally the fillers, and calculate your fillers per minute for that session.
And keep a log.
Exactly. A simple spreadsheet is perfect. Date, recording length, filler count, fillers per minute. Seeing those numbers trend down over time is incredibly motivating.
Yeah, visual progress.
And it also helps you spot if you hit a plateau, which we can talk about later.
Okay, tracking progress. Makes sense. Now, these are all very practical exercises. Are there any sort of mental techniques we can bring in?
Absolutely. Step 5 is about cultivating mindfulness.
Mindfulness, like meditation.
It can involve that, but it's broader. It's about becoming more present and aware in the moment, aware of your thoughts, sensations, and, importantly, your speech patterns as they happen.
How does that help with ums and ahs?
But increasing your general self-awareness. Even doing short daily mindfulness exercises like just focusing on your breath for a few minutes or doing a quick body scan can make you more attuned to that internal urge or impulse, to use a filler word right before you say it.
Catching the impulse itself.
Exactly. Noticing the urge gives you that split second to choose the pause instead.
So being more conscious while speaking.
Yes. And related to that is mental rehearsal.
Practicing in your head.
Kind of. Before an important conversation, a presentation, even just a phone call, take a couple of minutes to mentally walk through the key points you want to make.
Okay.
As you do this mental run-through, consciously practice delivering those points with the intentional pauses where you think a filler might normally pop up.
Pre-paving the pathways for smoother speech.
You got it. That mental preparation can make a real difference when the actual conversation happens.
That's a great tip. Now, sometimes, it's hard to hear ourselves accurately. Can other people help?
Yes, definitely. That brings us to step 6, seeking support. Finding an accountability partner.
Someone to keep you honest.
Yeah, in a supportive way. Ask a friend you trust, maybe a language partner, or even a willing colleague. Ask if they'd listen to you speak sometimes and just give you gentle feedback specifically on filler words.
What kind of feedback?
It could be super simple. Maybe agree on a subtle, real-time signal, like they gently tap their finger or slightly raise an eyebrow whenever they hear you use one of your target fillers.
Oh, wow. Real-time feedback. That sounds intense, but effective.
It can be incredibly powerful, yes. That immediate cue, right in the moment, dramatically increases your awareness and can really accelerate the process of changing the habit.
You'd certainly notice it more.
For sure. Just make sure it's someone you feel comfortable with and emphasize that you want supportive, gentle feedback, not criticism.
Good point. Choose your partner wisely. Okay, these steps sound great, but what if things get tricky? What are some common challenges people face?
Yeah, good question. One common pitfall is that focusing so hard on not using fillers can actually make you more anxious.
Oh, right. The anxiety itself causes more fillers, a vicious cycle.
Exactly. If you feel that happening, the best counter move is often to consciously slow down your overall speaking rate, just by about 10%.
Slow down deliberately.
Yeah. It gives your brain that crucial extra bit of processing time, reduces the feeling of pressure, and often the fillers decrease as a result.
Slow down to speed up fluency in a way. Interesting. What about being under pressure, like in a job interview or something, and just forgetting all about pausing? The habits just take over.
Totally normal under stress. One trick here is visual cues. If you have notes, put little reminders in them.
Reminders, like what?
Maybe a small symbol, like a P for pause, or even just a little drawing of lungs to remind you to breathe at points where you know you tend to rush or use fillers.
Visual triggers in your notes. Clever.
Those little cues can be surprisingly effective at snapping you back into conscious practice, even when you're nervous.
Okay, and what if you were doing well, the numbers were going down, but then you just get stuck? You hit a plateau.
Plateaus happen in any skill learning. It usually means your brain has kind of adapted to your current practice routine.
So you need to shake things up.
Exactly. Introduce new challenges. Try recording yourself in different contexts. Instead of a quiet room, record while you're walking outside.
Okay, add distractions.
Or instead of a planned monologue, record yourself in a more spontaneous group discussion, if possible. Varying the conditions forces your brain to adapt and can help push you past that plateau.
Makes sense. Keep the brain guessing. These are all such practical, actionable strategies. Let's bring it back to our listeners, the intermediate English learners. How does reducing fillers specifically help them?
Oh, the benefits are really tangible for learners. Firstly, you just make a stronger impression. Reducing fillers makes you sound more prepared, more confident, more in control of your English.
Better first impressions, definitely.
Secondly, clarity. It makes your ideas much easier for native speakers, or any listener really, to follow. They're focused on your message, not the ums and ahs.
So less mental work for the listener.
Exactly. And thirdly, and this is huge, it boosts your own feeling of confidence when speaking English. When you sound clearer, you feel more capable, and that encourages you to speak more.
Which leads to more practice and faster improvement overall. A positive cycle.
Precisely. So it's not just about sounding nicer, it's about becoming a more effective, clear, and confident communicator in English.
Refining the delivery so the message really shines through.
You got it. That's the core idea.
This has been incredibly useful. So just to quickly recap the main strategies we talked about for managing those filler words.
Yeah, first was awareness, recording yourself, counting, getting that baseline.
Right. Then harnessing the power of the pause, replacing fillers with silence.
Then chunking, speaking in meaningful phrase groups.
Followed by setting gradual goals, tracking your progress week by week.
Don't forget mindfulness, being present in your speech, and mental rehearsal.
And finally, seeking support, maybe an accountability partner for that real-time feedback.
That's a great summary. And remember, it's about consistency, applying these things bit by bit.
It's a process, not an overnight fix. Every little improvement counts.
Absolutely. Replacing those distracting fillers with confident silence or well-formed phrases, that's the journey.
Okay, so here's a little challenge for you listening. Next time you find yourself speaking English, try this. Just make a conscious effort to replace one single that you catch yourself about to say. Replace it with a brief silent pause instead.
Just one to start.
Yeah, just one. See how that feels. Did it feel strange? Did it feel okay? Did you notice any difference in how the conversation flowed or how the other person reacted?
Be your own researcher for a moment.
Exactly. Experiment a little and see what happens. Thanks so much for joining us for this deep dive on Chat Like a Native.
Keep practicing.